Meep, 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 meep. Good evening, folks. Tonight on Where Are They Now, we continue our series on monsters in film. I'm joined here by Manny the Mummy, live streaming in from Anaheim, California, where he's currently touring with his skateboard ballet troupe. Good evening, Manny. Glad to have you with us this evening.
Thank you, Ichabod. Glad to be here.
We'll find out more about your fascinating career in a moment, but first, let's begin with some lightning round questions. Favorite band?
The Talking Heads. Everyone expects me to answer the Bangles for Walk Like an Egyptian, but I'm not Egyptian, though it is a good song. But no, the Talking Heads.
Favorite dish?
Good old-fashioned fish and chips. Has to be with malt vinegar, though. But I prefer it not in the traditional newspaper, as the grease soaks into my linens.
Sounds like that would be a slippery meal. Favorite season?
Spooky season!
A favorite of many. Favorite road trip?
Oh, when I first started managing tours, I had a gig traveling with Count Basie and his orchestra. Of course, back then I was also a roadie. I couldn't just stand around with a clipboard. We didn't have a bus. We just had an old flatbed jalopy for the instruments, and 10 of us piled into one car in the cab of that jalopy. Dusty roads, dive bars. The band, of course, had to use the coloreds entrances, while I wasn't allowed in any of the places. I slept in the car, scared off a whole lot of would-be car thieves in the middle of the night, too. It sounds worse than it was. Working with that group was a hoot. That first 6-week tour through the Midwest makes any Bill Bryson story sound like a nursery rhyme. I was only with them a year, until they went big time and headed up to New York to play in Roseland.
That sounds at once terrifying and a wonderful adventure. Now, please, if you could expand on that, how did you come to work for Count Basie? How did your original film come about? How exactly did a mummy become an actor, a tour manager, and a much beloved member of the community?
That's a bit of a stretch, maybe. But yeah, people are a lot more comfortable with me now than they used to be. But I'll begin at the beginning. My name is Emmanuel Lajoie. I was a caretaker in the Grand Commune at Versailles, where the cooks, the courtiers, and the officers lived and ate. Some time after I was buried, Honoré Fragonard exhumed me and did his thing. Some say he worked his magic. Some say he was a twisted scientist. Others thought he was a provocative sculptor. Apparently, I was intended as a model for a medical school, but as I was awaiting transport, the revolution broke out. When his workshop was raided by a mob, I knew I had to flee or become firewood. And the amount of formaldehyde in me, I wouldn't have lasted long. I grabbed Honoré's cloak by the door and stole off under the cover of darkness. Those next 130 or so years were tough. I pinched some hats and some boots that were left in the doorways of taverns and inns, and I kept the look of a deranged military captain. Things never seemed to settle down in France, so after scaring a rider and making off with his horse, I made for the coast, where I smuggled myself on the first ship I found. We ended up landing in America, where I really had no choice but to haunt the countryside for a while. I frequented New England as the fog there made it easy for me to lurk around. I still wonder if the Headless Horseman was inspired by an encounter with me. Fast forward all the way to the late 19th century when I was hit by a train. It had the old cowcatcher in front, so I was more scooped and thrown rather than run down. I came to in a hospital morgue, took some sheets and towels to hide myself, creating my new look, and once again ran off into the night.
Not that I blame you, but you really are quite a seasoned thief.
Not like I had any other choice. Shortly thereafter, there was a surge in popular interest in the supernatural and the occult. Popular figures like Harry Houdini, authors like Ambrose Bierce, Aleister Crowley, and groups like the Golden Dawn gave me entire circles of society where I could be accepted, mostly as a curiosity, but I was welcome. And the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 brought a wave of almost manic interest in mummies. Through these clubs and groups and meetings, I met Boris Karloff, and we became fast friends. After the success of his Frankenstein movie, he was able to convince Universal to make a mummy movie, partly to get me a real job so I wouldn't have to continue thieving, and partly to expand my acceptance in society across the board. The studio felt they couldn't credit me, or else I'd have to parade down the red carpet at the premiere, and they weren't ready for that. They made a mask of Boris for me to wear during the shoot, and I earned my first real paycheck. I finally felt like I'd made it up a rung for my life's career as a janitor. I even met Bela Lugosi in the cafeteria on set, and we became regular lunch buddies. After the film was released, the studio decided to cut me without signing me to a contract, since it would have been a little more difficult to hide me from the public while putting me on the big screen. I was off on the road again to find work, and through my Hollywood contacts, I branched into music. I began as a roadie, but my organizational abilities could not go unnoticed, and that was when Basie hired me onto his group. After Basie's band, I stuck to local productions to make it easier to stay out of the limelight, rather than going off to Chicago, New York, or New Orleans. Kansas City was big enough for me. Then jazz died, and I turned to rock groups, though I never did enjoy touring with them as much as the blues and big bands. Too rowdy for my liking. I've been managing this skateboard ballet troupe since the 80s. We have a touring group that performs tricks and dances to audiences all over the world. We just finished a tour through Singapore, Jakarta, Taipei, and Sapporo. Now we're in Anaheim on our way back to home base in Seattle. We also have a charitable branch of the group that teaches at-risk youth skateboarding techniques and dances. It works twofold. We create a supportive community for them, and we ensure that we always have up-and-coming artists for our lineup. It's why we've been able to tour so often for so long. It's given me the moderate success and fame I like. That sweet spot between the extremities.
I'm positively gobsmacked. So much accomplishment, and it's mostly been posthumous. Impressive indeed. I'm glad it has a happy ending as well. Now, I understand you've recorded a spooky poem for us to hear.
Yes, I've chosen a chilling one from William Blake, A Poison Tree. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears, and I sunned it with smiles, and with soft deceitful wiles, and it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright, and my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine, and into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree.
Well, that should certainly teach anyone not to get on your bad side. Such a thrilling time we've had here tonight with you. Thank you so much for joining me all the way from sunny California this evening, or I suppose afternoon for you.
My pleasure, Ichabod. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, that's all we have for tonight's program. Be sure to join us again next time when we sit down with Elizabeth Frankenstein. Until then, this is Ichabod Brumbles for Where Are They Now? Good night and take care. Meep.